morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. March, we are 1 week away from March break for a lot of classrooms. Spring break, maybe if you're in the US, so a lot of classrooms might be taking a little time off soon, but we have a load of content coming your way before we take a little break and then continue again with live events right after the March break. So if you head to exploringbytheseat.com, you can find all the live action we have coming up, or follow along on social media to see what kind of cool lessons are coming your way that you can join with your students and classrooms. All right. Well, I say this all the time. Our favorite thing to do is to go out in the field because, well, there's nothing cooler than virtually leaving your classroom and seeing really cool places around the planet and meeting really interesting people and finding out what they're up to. We've been following the Around the Americas expedition for quite some time now, since May 2025, as they're on their 14-month voyage circumnavigating North and South America aboard the 48-foot sailboat One Ocean. This mission is focused on scientific research, education, and community outreach, all to raise awareness about ocean health. This builds on a past journey back in 2009-2010, and the expedition will collect important data to see how the ocean has been changing over the past 15 years. So let's find out where our team is right now. Let's reach backstage and bring in the crew. Hey, team, how we doing?
Great. Hi, Joe. Thanks very much for having us again. We're really happy to be here, especially today. We have some fun things to talk about.
That sounds great to me. I want to share the map because we're always curious where you are, what you've been up to. So I'm going to get this up on the screen. It's hard to tell from this image where you are, so I'm going to back out a little bit for some perspective. Look at the ground covered in this expedition so far. If we start back here in Washington and we go through the Northwest Passage, along the eastern seaboard, through the Panama Canal, along the coast of South America, and here we are. It's hard to get much further south than this. Pretty cool.
Yeah. You know, Mark's hair used to be brown when we started.
And you can't get any further south if you're walking. You got to have a boat. Antarctica is 600 miles further south, but we're at the end of the continent, right there.
So we have a big day yesterday for the team here. We've got Tess, myself, Jennifer, and Captain Mark, but yesterday was a very big day for us. We went around Cape Horn.
56 degrees, 50 minutes south. So it is the point of land. That was a big point for us to get to in this voyage. And now we can start sailing north.
Yeah. And that image you just brought up of Mark there, he was holding up 4 fingers because this is his 4th time going around Cape Horn, and he sailed around the world twice alone, and then he did this expedition 15 years ago, like you mentioned, and then he just did it again yesterday.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, I'm going to shut down this map. Let's get you guys full screen again. There we go. It looked like you had a good day to do it. The weather looked relatively calm. I'm sure there's lots of water flowing through that area, so I'm sure there were currents to think about.
Lots of water flowing through, and it was in 20 knots, something like that. And so we were able to go east to west.
We hit 30 knots at times.
I wasn't watching that. I was looking at the rock.
We were able to get our spinnaker up with the North and South America just as we were going around, and so they were working on that. But yeah, we had some big winds and really strong currents because we have the collision of, you know, the oceans there. But it was a fabulous day. And then when we were in the wind shadow of Cape Horn, it actually was really smooth, really calm, beautiful day.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Strange, different occurrence that, you know, didn't happen in years past. A cruise ship was scheduled to be there at about the same time we were. We didn't see them. They weren't there. So we were either late or they were somewhere else.
Early, yeah.
But cruise ships at Cape Horn, something different.
Yeah, cool. Well, there we go. Another big milestone. And now heading north again, eventually.
Heading north, yep. Yep, our bow's pointed north. We're heading back to Port Williams, and then we start making our plan from there. So we're heading north.
And we'll do that via the Beagle Channel. Should we talk about that a little bit?
Yes.
Pretty amazing. The Beagle Channel, I mean, and
Oh,
We
actually,
We
yeah.
do have some slides.
Yeah,
Joe,
let me
if you
share
want to pull
that.
that out.
Yeah. Let's see how cooperative Canva is with a share today. So presentation. That looks good so far. Let's go full screen.
Yay.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, so next screen you can go to. There's a couple of pictures of us at the Horn yesterday celebrating. Very exciting time.
And you see the rock in the background. That's it.
That's
That's-
Cape Horn, everybody.
That's what it took. I have a book on board that talked about a square rigger that was going from east to west, and it took them over 2 months to go the distance we covered yesterday. Because the winds were contrary, there was no place else to go. They had to be sailing back and forth. They'd sail a little bit west and then get blown back. So lots of history there. Didn't happen for us that way. We were able to come out and go around and come back north into the Beagle Channel.
Yeah. So next slide. One
Right.
other exciting news we did yesterday. We dropped a buoy yesterday, right?
Yeah, we dropped MicroSwift 171, and we're actually dedicating this buoy to St. Andrew's School of Math and Science, Class 4B. So shout out to you guys. We know you've been following us all the way along here, and we've officially reached our furthest point south, so we thought that it would be a really fun one to dedicate to you guys. But this data, you guys can actually, everyone here can go access it. There is a link on this image right here, and it gives you information like ambient noise, temperature, drift, and you can go check it out. So I definitely recommend all classes to go look at that because the Drake Passage is known for its treacherous waters, so we might get really, really interesting data down there.
Yeah,
And you can find this link on our website under MicroSwift buoy drop. So you can find this link here and you'll be able to reach buoy number 171.
and
Yes.
historically, some of the biggest waves in the world have been recorded in this area. So yesterday was pretty calm. That changes dramatically from day to day. So fun to watch that buoy.
Well, actually, on the graph right there that Joe has up, you can see just today that the wave, this is wave height, and look at it, just went from almost nothing to over 3 meters just today. So just started tracking as well. So it could be kind of some interesting stuff happening. Anyway, we can go to the next buoy there. I mean, next.
Next slide. So just to orient, in the bottom right corner there, you'll see Cape Horn, little orange, or little yellow island way at the bottom of the screen. We came out from the Beagle Channel. The Beagle Channel is a channel that connects Atlantic and Pacific. Was discovered by the HMS Beagle, a ship, in about 1830. It's significant because on that ship, the captain was 26 years old, but Charles Darwin was 23, and he was invited along as a naturalist. So a lot of the things that Darwin, his theories and specimens that he collected were collected right in this 120-mile long channel, which you can go through if you don't want to go around Cape Horn to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific. It's one of three ways. Above that is a Strait of Magellan that's off this slide that is 350 miles long, and bigger ships use that. The Beagle Channel was used, in the day if ships just couldn't manage to get around Cape Horn. But both of those places are sort of curvy, twisty places and hard for sailing ships to negotiate. So Cape Horn is it. But the Beagle Channel is amazing. The HMS Beagle, it's named for the ship, was 90 feet long and 20 feet wide. We're 50 feet long and 16 feet wide. They had a crew of 75. We have a crew who is 75. But only 3 or 4. So, things have changed. You can imagine the Beagle stayed down here off and on. It made 3 different voyages through here. A lot of the channels are named after people aboard the HMS Beagle, but it was a warship, recommissioned as a survey ship, and a lot of the channels now that we're using, a lot of the charts that we're using are derived from data that was collected way back then.
Next slide, please, Joe.
You can see easily from this if you were anywhere in Europe, Africa, and you wanted to sail west, you had to go around Cape Horn. And that was true until the Panama Canal was cut through. So it was all the shipping came down in this area. The best shipwrights in the world were in the Falkland Islands because ships got damaged. People would pull into the Falkland Islands before they went around Cape Horn. So truly a significant area. Wild, beautiful, and down here, not much goes on commercially. It's, voyaging around.
So now we'll kind of get into what today's topic is about is plastics in our ocean. And as they talked about 15 years ago, Captain Mark here took another crew around North and South America, this exact expedition. And really what you guys noticed was just the amount of garbage and the amount of plastics that they found. So if we
Well, that's right. Well, that's right. But in looking at this image, the reason for that voyage and the reason for Around the Americas then and now is to show really what this image is beautifully showing. We're all connected. The ocean connects all of us. Something that somebody does in the North Atlantic eventually comes down into the South Atlantic and South Pacific. So we all benefit or can benefit from everybody doing the right thing. And you'll see in the next slide here, one of the disappointing things we saw on the last voyage, so much plastic on the beaches, way down here, all along the coasts. Fishing debris, plastic debris.
You can keep skipping through
Yeah.
some of these, Joe.
You throw something away in the ocean and there isn't any away. There's no away. It stays there forever. Discarded fishing debris, fishing line, bottles, plastic bottles just last forever. So in the Great Pacific Garbage Gyre and in the North Pacific, you see a lot of that, but you see a lot of that here. It's just carried all the way around. This is an interesting story in Peru 15 years ago. This is a beach that was in front of the Naval Academy in Peru. We couldn't believe that it was just such a public beach and it was such a mess. It bothered us and we talked to people about it a little bit. And then 15 years later,
yeah, we have
next
some
slide.
good news.
There's good news in this front. Same beach.
Same beach. And so what you can see is there's a little bit of styrofoam left on the beach here that washes up ever so often, but they're cleaning things up and they're taking care of it. And that's fantastic to see.
And I want to say a lot of that came from school initiatives.
Mhm.
Young kids in school making a fuss about the plastic that's out there on the beaches and trying to clean it up. And when the kids started talking about it, the adults had to listen. And it changed some government regulations. It changed how the communities deal with their garbage.
Yeah.
So
next slide.
I'm encouraged by that.
Tess and I had to so much fishing line in the water nowadays. I mean, it's just unreal. So we had to go in and clean our prop. We had a mass entanglement. I think, did we go in twice? Anyway, we had to go cut it out twice.
And this is out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, middle of the ocean, just so much. So the next one, I think fishing line is one of the most worrisome things. Here it is. This is actually a picture from down here in Chile, in the very southern region of Patagonia. Still plastics on the beach and fishing line, and it just can't be helped. It just seems to keep washing up and washing up. So there's just a lot of stuff going on out there. Next slide. And this is in Panama. It's kind of hard to see there, but there's that rock face there. That's all garbage. Actually, the next slide too. Panama was particularly bad. I was disappointed and saddened to see how much garbage was swirling around Panama. There was a lot. Everything was covered.
Well, and then out in a beautiful place where we
we went to a nature reserve and all the animals are
you'll see that too
walking
here.
around plastic. So it was just it's very sad.
Next one.
Go ahead. And then
Oh yeah, we can't get away from this.
so this is a photo of up in the Arctic, and we went for kind of like just an afternoon picnic and walk around this island, and
Looked like a beautiful sand dune from a few
Mhm.
miles away.
yeah. And so as we went for a little hike, we started noticing stuff, and this is stuff poking out of the sand. And if you go to the next slide, we started to see like these
Odd things,
Mhm.
just coming out of the sand. This is debris from an oil field, oil exploration, and oil drilling. And they decided when they were done with that area, they just abandoned the stuff and
Yeah,
dumped it
next
here
slide.
and covered it with sand and plastic.
So that's what we
It's a
discovered.
big island.
The whole island had been covered in plastic to just cover it up, and then the sand, comes over it because there's all kinds of shifting sand up there in the Arctic. And so it just looked like a sand dune to us until we start walking further. I mean, it was really heartbreaking to see this. It was a massive mound of waste up there, just covered in plastic. So very, very sad to see that. So next slide. And then here we are. Tess, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, so this is a picture of the San Blas Islands. This is kind of like right before we went through the Panama Canal. And these islands are home to just the indigenous people primarily that live down there. And there's not much like housing or anything, any reason
No
why.
industry, yeah.
Yeah, no industries. So a bunch of plastic washed ups on their shore. However, it's not necessarily from them, but it's from people around and from the oceans that are bringing it to their shoreline. So like sometimes you'll drop plastics in the water and it will end up somewhere that you may never see, but that doesn't mean that it's not affecting other people on the same island. But yeah, it was pretty sad to see that. There was a lot of plastic on those islands down there.
Yeah, pretty prestigious, beautiful place, except for it was constant, tons of trash. Next. And again, just a couple more examples of how much, and you can go the next one. And one other big one, I'm sorry, our scientist Grace Dalton couldn't make it today. She's under the weather, not feeling well. But another big, huge part of this is whale entanglements and any kind of sea life entanglement with any kind of fishing lines, ingestion of plastics. Turtles ingest a lot of plastic grocery bags, things like that. So just a lot of things we were able to see and witness out there. I think you can go to the next slide, Joe. Oh yeah, so this is kind of something that struck me personally. I saw a quote while I was on this journey, and it says, "But what can I do? I'm just one person," said 8 billion people.
Well,
And yeah, well, what we can tell you is, one person can do one thing, and that's maybe just change one habit. One solution is maybe don't use a plastic water bottle. Maybe go to, other kinds of solutions.
well, and educate others. You're listening to this and you're involved in this project. You know that it's a problem, and you can remind others, your friends. You can remind, we all need to be working together. What is for sure is the next slide.
Next.
By changing nothing, nothing changes. By doing nothing, nothing changes. So that is a for sure. That's an absolute. If we all do nothing, none of this will change. We've seen it as we saw that example in Peru, and we've seen it in other places where communities take charge of what's going on in their water and trying to clean it. Sydney Harbor in Australia is a good example of that. It used to be just a pollution nightmare, and it's now clean. And that's because of environmental activists and mostly schools who got involved with something has to change here. And once they got a hold of it, change started to happen. It wasn't quick, it took a few years, but it changed.
Mm-hmm. If we each do something small, it will accumulate into something much, much bigger than all of us, so we can all do our part and help clean up our oceans and protect our planet.
Well, thank you. That's from our end right now. And so I'm going to introduce you to a pretty amazing lady. We were very fortunate when we were in Bermuda. We got to go visit the Bermuda Underwater Exploration Institute, and they let us tour all around. It was a fabulous place. And then we got to meet Hannah Horsfield, who is just about to come on here and present about marine plastics, but she is the education program director for buoy, right? That's how you say that, Hannah? Oh, I can't hear you.
I think you're on mute.
Hi guys, great to see you. Yeah, I'm the program educator. There's three of us here in the education department. But yeah, I specialize in doing a lot of lessons on plastics. So I'm looking forward to showing you some of the stuff that I have today. Yeah, just showing you a little bit about what Bermuda does. What the problem that we're seeing. Thank you for showing those pictures. It's crazy. I mean, yeah, I expected it to be like that, but to find plastic in such remote places must be really, really hard to see.
Yeah,
So,
definitely hard to see. And, we were really struck by what great work you guys are doing there in Bermuda, and how wonderful Bermuda looks, and what you got, just the research you're doing. So really good to see you again. And thank you for being on the show here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. We're thrilled. So I will start with my slide decks. So I'm talking today a little bit about the marine plastic pollution in the Sargasso Sea, as well as Bermuda. So this is the island of Bermuda, sort of a gloomy picture because it's a gloomy subject. And so a little bit about me. My name is Hannah Horsfield. I am born and raised in Bermuda. I went to school here, and now I am the program educator at BUEI. This is my office where I am today. I deliver fun and engaging lessons on Bermuda's natural history, marine science, social studies, anything to help aid the school curriculums. And then on the side, I'm also an artist. I create large-scale murals from upcycled marine debris. The picture in the bottom there is actually with bottle caps collected locally, but most of my artwork right now is focused on marine plastics. And I'm deeply committed to protecting our environment. So where we are, Little Bermuda, here we are in the Atlantic. We are just on the east of the North Atlantic, and you can see this is the Sargasso Sea around us. So Bermuda is the only landmass in the Sargasso Sea. We have the Gulf Stream current that comes up along the west of us and cycles around in a clockwise rotation. Within the Sargasso Sea is this floating seaweed, and it provides an important habitat and ecosystem for small invertebrates and creatures living within it. Birds feed from above, fish feed from below. It also provides a nursing ground for juvenile species in the open ocean, and is really important beach nourishment and stabilizing our dunes in Bermuda. So we are very connected to the Sargasso. A little bit about Bermuda. It's a self-governing British overseas territory in the mid-Atlantic with a population of 63,000. It's known for its pink sandy beaches, coral reefs, and a high-income economy based on tourism and international finance. It's comprised of roughly 181 limestone islands sitting on top of an extinct basalt volcano. It has a subtropical humid climate with no rivers. It relies on rain for fresh water, and it features the northernmost mangrove forest and coral reef system in the world. And so this is really what we want to protect. Bermuda's beautiful coral reef system. It's a 280 square mile protective barrier that runs all around our island along the edge of the seamount platform. This is an example of the hard and the soft corals that make up our reef. It's home to over 300 fish species, and we also host over 200 to 300 shipwrecks, which make it an epic place to come diving and snorkeling. There's a rich history on the treasure and all of that around us. That's part of what our museum highlights as well here in Bermuda. And it also dissipates 85% of storm wave energy, so both from the hurricanes that we see in the summer months and our big winter storms. And so the reason I'm here today to talk to you all about plastic pollution in the ocean and the real issues around it. So starting with plastics, what is plastic? So plastic comes from the Greek word plastikos, meaning being able to be capable of molded or shaped into anything. And the natural material of plastic is crude oil, which you can see here. And they use that to create nurdles. So nurdles are the plastic as a raw material. So every item, whether it's in your shoes, the paint on the walls, in your car, all around us, it starts its life as crude oil mixed with some other ingredients and becomes these nurdles. Unfortunately, from this image here, you can see that these nurdles are in the sand. So every beach in Bermuda has nurdles in it. Plastic was introduced in the 1920s and used worldwide by the 1960s. So I like to show this image. There's always a couple of different diagrams, but as you guys were talking about how plastic water bottles are forever, yeah, they are pretty much forever. All of those that have been made are still in the environment unless they're incinerated or being recycled. They are still in the environment today, so that's 450 years, but we're not really sure because we haven't even had them around for that long. Fishing lines, 600 years. Plastic bags, 10 to 20. They usually get ingested or break down into smaller and smaller pieces. So the North Atlantic pelagic inhabitants that are at risk, these are some epic photographs that were taken of some of the species that we have swimming around our island. Right now, currently, the North Atlantic humpback whale populations are heading north, and they are all around. So this weekend, the whole island, everyone, I feel like, was out trying to catch a glimpse of the whales. But there's been some studies done on the nanoplastics within the ocean. So the total number is probably a lot higher than we realize. So they estimate that there's likely over 200 million tons of plastics and microplastics in the ocean today, which is a very underestimated environmental crisis for sure. Needs to be talked about more. And from the surface to the depth. So this is a paper nautilus that we've been found in the midnight zone, which is over 6,000 feet down, 3,000 to 6,000 feet. And they've also looked at, they haven't been able to study sediments as deep as the Marianas Trench, but they're able to do estimates. And so they think that there are billions of microplastics and fibers in particular on each square kilometer of the seafloor. So, and these environments are where breaking down take a lot longer in the deep sea. So once it's down there, it's pretty much there forever. So this is a real problem that we're facing. This is some examples of some of the cleanups that I've done. So Bermuda also has a significant plastic pollution crisis. It's driven by a high combination of high consumption and reliance on imported goods. So we really do rely heavily on everything being imported to Bermuda. And we also see a large volume of plastic debris washing up on our shores from the North Atlantic Gyre, and that could be all around the world. I'll show you some examples of where in a moment, but 90% of what we find on the shores actually doesn't originate in Bermuda. And this is called transboundary marine debris. It's what one of my university studies was on when I did my bachelor's degree. So this example right here is, this is the North Atlantic, and we have the North Atlantic Gyre. So you have the Gulf Stream going up, Canary current is a cold current that comes down, and then this is the equatorial current. And those currents are cycling in a clockwise motion, and we see different items washing up, and we can actually, the larger plastics, we can tell where they're coming from. So you have these octopus traps, which are, they used to be terracotta, and now they are made from plastic with a weight inside them. They often break loose. Every cleanup I do, we find at least one or two. They come from areas like Morocco and around the Mediterranean. We see fish pot tags and lobster pot tags that actually have addresses on them from where they've come from. Often they're coming from north of us, so that tells us that they've journeyed at least once around the Atlantic. A lot of goods are from container spill and also the fishing industry. So I'm going to show you now some of the items that I have here on my table to show you today. So from container spills, we see things like hair baubles. These are beads that would have been part of those hair bands, those 90s hair bands. We have HP cartridges. So this we can actually tie to a 2011 container spill that happened off of the coast of the UK. And so these are something that we find all the time. I just found one this weekend. We have umbrella handles. So these would be either from landfill or maybe also a container spill. But often a lot of landfills are in areas that are then susceptible to waves crashing or coming from riverine sources too. This is, these are different tags. These are fish pot tags, lobster pot tags that give the actual location. So they're from lobster pots, and they come from Rhode Island, Maine, Canada. They often have the actual state, a state on them. So this is an interesting tell. Those we find by the thousands. These are also different tags here. These also have the name of the fisherman and the license number. So these come from the fish pots. And this is also able to tell us exactly where they've come from. And we have, these are from, interestingly, they say Florida Department of Environmental Protection, 1997 to 1998. And so these were actually, they stopped using these because they were not working. After a year or two, they would fall apart. But these we can trace exactly where they've come from. From down south, we also have these. These are a strange, it took me a while to figure out what they were, but they're actually shotgun shell casings. So these are from maybe hunting mallard ducks. down in the in like the Everglades areas. So these then wash into the ocean, and we find them also by the thousands on our shoreline. And these are our crab trap doors. So I find at least 3 to 4 of these every time I do a cleanup. Not sure why they're constantly breaking away from the trap, but the smaller crabs would escape through this. So a crab trap would just, this is how you keep the sizes. I think you help the younger ones so you can catch them the next season. This is for a fish pot. They go in, they can't get back out. And so we're always finding different types of trap doors, again, by the thousands on our shores. And then I have one item here that I wanted to show you. This is a buoy, and it has these bite marks in it. And I want you just to think a little bit for a minute. Who do you think is eating this? Just have a think. I also have smaller bite marks like this, and it's the V-shaped bite mark that you're looking for. See those V shapes? That V shape comes not from a fish, not from a turtle, but actually from a squid. And I have a squid beak to show you today. This is the beak. I'm trying to get it in focus for you. This is a beak. It's like a parrot beak. You can see that? It's the beak of a rhomboid squid. This comes from a 6-foot squid. So they have the tentacles to grab onto the plastic while they bite. Squids have to eat in a huge amount of food every day, and unfortunately, a large majority of what they're eating is actually plastics. We know that fish are also ingesting them, and turtles, but that in particular, these bite marks that we see on all of the plastic items are from squid. And I also have to show you today, this is crude oil. This is the raw material of plastic. So this is what plastic is made from. You can see the sludgy brown. It actually, the light doesn't even shine through it. It is really gross crude oil. So this is what all plastic is made from. I've added water to it so you can kind of see. It's got a bit of glare though, but yeah, so that's the raw material of plastic. And then this last piece of art that I have here, these are container spill hair clips that were found in Bermuda and the Little Cayman. So both beaches locally and also in the Little Cayman. And you can see they would have all come from that same container spill that spilled in 2001. So we're able to track a lot of those things. So you can put me back on the slideshow. If you have any questions about that, we'll hopefully have some time at the end to hear from you. So jumping into microplastics, this is the big thing that everybody's talking a lot about at the moment, because it doesn't only affect the marine health, it's also affecting human health. You know, we're finding plastics in the human brain, in our bloodstream, and the consequences of it are all kinds of endocrine disruption, tumor growths, cancer, neurological disorders. And so it is a real problem that not only our environment is faced with, but also ourselves. And so it's coming from all different things. You can see, I think this pie chart here is a really great example of seeing where it's from. 35% from synthetic textiles. So that's from washing clothes in the washing machines. A lot of sewage systems actually flow out into the ocean. And yes, they may have a grating or a net to keep larger plastics out, but the synthetic ones are the tiny little microplastics. I will show you an alternative that you can throw in your machine to help collect those microfibers. Because we're even seeing that coral are ingesting these tiny little microplastics. Also from like the city dust, from roads, from car tires is a huge one, and then also from larger plastics breaking down, right? So any plastic item over time will start to shed and degrade into the environment. Here's another example of microplastics in the ocean and where they come from. And the real problem with animals ingesting them, this is copepods. These are right at the bottom of the food chain, tiny little zooplankton, and they are actually ingesting. You can see the green is our microplastics. And so when it's called bioaccumulation, right? So when a larger fish comes and eats the copepods, and then another fish comes and eats that, and another fish, and that plastic is then accumulating, and the toxins are accumulating within the animals. And then we're often we're at the end of that food chain ingesting the fish or squid or whatever. And so this is just, I like this example here because when we think microplastics, we think it's like that. It gets much, much smaller, so small that you can't even see it without a really high microscope. So actually plastic water bottles often have nanoplastics within them. So not only is the plastic water bottle immediately damaging the environment when it's littered, but also when you are ingesting that water that's been sit in that plastic, you are directly impacting your own health. So I wanted to highlight a bit of research that's happening in Bermuda. BUEI, where I work, is actually more of an education facility. We really are always making sure that we are teaching the public on these different things. But I wanted to highlight another nonprofit in Bermuda called Bermuda Institute of Ocean Sciences. They actually have this Atlantic Explorer, and they go out into the Sargasso around Bermuda, also in the open ocean. They're currently doing some really exciting research that I'm not going to talk about because they still have to highlight that, but I'm going to show some studies that they've done recently. And they use students. They are tied with the Arizona State University, and so there's a lot of student exchanges happening, and so a lot of people getting involved. Here's an example of a map where they've been seawater sampling the suspended nanoplastics. So they're really looking at those tiny microscopic plastics. And so you can see around Bermuda's platform, but also these orange sites are open ocean. And unfortunately, in every single study that they've done, they've found nanoplastics. Here's an example of what those nanoplastics look like. What am I looking at? This is plastic that they've used a red dye to make the plastic shine. So these little glowing bits are actually all the nanoplastics. So figure A is showing you an inshore area, clear water, and figure B is a wreck site, which is a little bit further out off our platform. We see like the inshore bays and areas, especially those that are facing the prevailing wind direction, have a larger accumulation of these plastics. And so this is a real concern that we are finding in the water all around us, as well as they do beach sample sampling. So this is what I did for my dissertation. I also sampled the plastics within the different layers of the sediment. And every sample that I did, I also found microfibers and plastics within them. So over the course of the last couple of years, Biostation has done 37 independent surveys, and they sampled over 430 square feet along 4 different locations. So, and yeah, again, this is a great way that they are teaching young scientists how to do these studies, but it is also really scary to know that they're finding it all within all of their samples. And so this is jumping back into BUEI, so Bermuda Underwater Exploration Institute, where I work. Here's some nice examples of how we teach about plastics. So we're always doing art with the students. I find that a great way for them to really engage with it. We do beach plastic cleanups as well. And then I'm always pulling out my big collection to show students. And we teach from ages 5 all the way up to the Bermuda College level. And then we've also done some fun community art over the past few years. So this is a large mural that had multiple ages helping me with this. So as young as 6 all the way to 84, we had a big range of people all around the island helping us with this art project. And also the most recent one with these fish boards, everyone was invited to create a fish from the plastics. And then university, in 2016, I started a small business selling complete plastic keychains. So I was taking microplastics off the beach, putting them in resin molds and making keychains. I very quickly realized that I was making plastic with the resin and it just didn't sit well with me. So I cut out the resin work and I'm just doing artwork solely with the plastics and glue. And so I've done a logo for a restaurant recently for an art competition. And then I'm always creating kind of funky fish prints and pictures. Not prints, just gluing them straight on the board. So this has been a really exciting way for me to use it and to express, yeah. So one huge thing we can all do, and you guys all spoke about this already, but stop using single-use plastic. So 70 to 89% of the marine plastic waste comes from single-use items. And so that is bottles, bags, cigarette butts, plastic cutlery, the straws, all of these things are contributing to the decline in ocean health. And so you can see this image here of plastic bottles. I definitely always think about if that plastic water bottle is not being recycled currently or hasn't been incinerated, then it is in the environment today. And you could wrap the globe several times with a chain of plastic bottles from how much is in the ocean currently. Reusable items. So this is really, you guys were talking a little bit about the about water bottles. So yes, even the plastic ones are not great. So we're really trying to use, these can breed bacteria. So the metal ones are really the alternative that you want to go for, as well as metal cutlery, Pyrex dishes with silicone lids. Silicone is a little bit more environmentally friendly, doesn't leach into your food. Saran wrap is something that really leaches into food. So using beeswax wraps is an alternative. In your kitchen, you can swap out your plastic shedding sponge for a natural fiber one that you can throw into the compost when you're done with it, using a loofah that's naturally derived. So the actual loofah seed, that is a seed pod. You can use that in the shower instead of the plastic ones, so that won't leach through the drains. And then the Cora ball. So this Cora ball, there's a couple of different versions of this, but you throw it in the wash with your washing load, and it picks up all of the it doesn't pick up all of them. They reckon around 85 to 90% of the microfibers that are coming out of your clothing are then sticking to this ball. So it's a great way to try and mitigate the amount of synthetic fibers that wash into the ocean. And I wanted to give you some update on some interesting science that's happening right now. So beneath the ocean surface, researchers have found this bacteria that can actually digest the plastic, has special enzymes, and they've actually evolved alongside our synthetic materials. So they're very new, and we're not too sure. But to understand how widespread these bacteria are that they've researched 400 ocean samples collected all around the globe, and they appear in nearly 80% of the tested waters. So that's from surface gyres to nutrient poor depths 2 kilometers below. They have found these small bacteria. There is also, but we're not sure, this isn't all of a sudden a solution. They are eating at such a small rate and a slow rate that the human health and animal health are still being greatly affected by the plastic. So this is not a solution, it's just interesting new science that's come out. And also there is a wax moth. The greater wax moth caterpillar can actually digest polyethylene plastic, which is a potential solution specifically to like landfill, for example. If they can, scientists are working on taking the saliva and the gut enzymes and developing something industrial scale for recycling. So that's exciting. This wax moth actually eats beeswax, but it is capable of also breaking down the plastics. Not all types of plastics, but the plastic bags, it's really polyethylene. And so that was some 2 notes. And then in conclusion, I'd like to say thank you so much. These are some artworks right here that we've also created, the crazy Barbie doll nightmare and toys. We find all kinds of plastics like this washing up on our shores. Bermuda is stepping into doing a month-long cleanup with KBB. And so our schools are all participating. And so the community is really engaged in making sure our shoreline is protected, and we're hoping our government is pushing that ban on single-use plastics. So there are talks in the works since 2021. They have been talking about banning single-use plastics, and so there are quite a few of us organizations pushing and hoping for this change. So you can give me a follow at Seabreeze Design, and you can also follow BUEI Bermuda and see more of the fun educating classes and camps that we run in our program. So I just wanted to say thank you. And if you have any questions, to open up from the floor or from Joe.
Okay, well, let's get everybody back into the call. Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you, Around the Americas team. That was a great look at kind of in real time what you guys were seeing as you sailed around, and then, being an island in Bermuda, and in those currents, you're right in the pathway of a lot of that plastic that washes up on shore. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get some Q&A action going. If you are tuning in via the chat, don't be shy to send in any questions you might have about ocean plastics. But the first one, I've got a couple here already. The first one is just a size of the problem. Do we have, I know we can't count every single piece of plastic, but is there an estimate about how much plastic might be in our ocean today?
Yeah, so they reckon for every foot of coastline, you could put 3 trash bags on every inch of coastline around the globe. And so it's like 8 billion metric tons or something insane. But that's on surface level, right? The research that's happening now is that they're studying the deeper water layer to figure out how far down it's going and what those infiltration numbers look like. And that's some interesting science that the BIOS Bermuda is working on that they will highlight in the next year. That paper will come out.
All right. So follow up to that question is, there's different types of plastic. Is there a type that's maybe most problematic or turns up the most?
Styrofoam. The compound in styrofoam. The problem with a lot of the plastics is that as it's floating around in the ocean, it actually attracts toxins and like harmful things like BPA's and all these complicated scientific words, but they stick to this. And so just in understanding that this is now not only is the plastic toxic, but also then when it's ingested, that those toxins leach into animals and our own health as well. But styrofoam is definitely up there on the most toxic material. And it's really problematic because of the degradation rates are so low.
Okay.
I've
got a 2-part question here for our crew on the boat. As you've been sailing around, have you seen anything in the water that's really surprised you? And the second one is, was there anywhere that you've been so far where you were pleasantly surprised by the lack of plastic?
I have one example. I was surprised. We were way off of, I think it was off of Peru. We were way offshore, and a Mylar balloon floated by. And balloons are a huge problem, plastics, and but to just see this floating by, I was kind of shocked about how far it had made it, and it was just single out there, just floating on by. So that one was, for me, was very shocking to see that.
I've seen quite a few shoes. Specifically, when we were in the Caribbean, you could see where the tide line was, and there was just a bunch of plastics on that line. But yeah, lots of shoes and just random stuff way out there.
And I guess my take is I don't have a positive. I'm alarmed by seeing so few areas that didn't show signs of human plastic that came from somewhere. I mean, everywhere. We've been in some very remote places, little islands, little places you wouldn't think anybody would go, and suddenly there's something on the shore that ought not be there. That's discouraging. But
yeah, what I am encouraged about is, people seem to be doing a lot more. There seems to be treaties about the high seas treaties trying to take care of things. I think the biggest thing I'm most impressed with are the kids, and what we've noticed going around. It seems like the kids are the ones that are really on it. You guys ask great questions, very forward thinking about plastics, about all kinds of things about our ocean. So I have a lot of hope for our children these days, and I'm still going to continue to try to do what I can to leave a better earth for these kids, because it's been really disappointing to see how much plastic. I'm learning a ton. I've learned a lot along the way, and how I can change some things as well. So we're all learning all the time.
Yeah. I was on, just speaking of remoteness, a deep sea expedition. We were using ROVs and we were exploring ocean bottom, between 3 and 4 kilometers deep. No human eyes have ever seen it before. And then it's like, there's a Dr. Pepper can, there's a balloon, there's a fishing net, there's a paint can. So it really is a big problem, not just on the surface, even in the depths that we don't often think about all over the planet. I want to bring in now Livy. Livy is hanging out with us in North Carolina, and she's always got some pretty good questions. So I think I see a list of questions there. So let's get over there.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Awesome, thank you for asking. So I was wondering, anybody can answer this question. What do we know about how much plastic baby sea turtles anywhere are consuming?
We live on
How much
an
plastic?
island. We live on Topsail Island, where there are a lot of nesting sea turtles, And we worry because they're headed to the Sargasso Sea, right? And so that's where they get to play and get bigger. So we're worried about that. And obviously on this island, there's a lot of tourism. There's a lot of exciting things to buy. And plastic is hidden in that, right, Libby?
Mm-hmm.
So she's very curious about how much you said the sea turtles might be
So
consuming.
yeah,
do you know
so
about
the turtles are consuming at least the study in 2014 was that they find it in over 50% of the stomachs of turtles. And so I would say that they are ingesting small plastics. We know that bags and balloons often look like jellyfish. And so a lot of the sea turtles that we get are green turtles in Bermuda, and they will often have plastics within them, or you can see their bellies. Our Bermuda Aquarium Museum and Zoo has an example of a small turtle that washed up, and the stomach contents they actually have in a jar there. It's alarming. So unfortunately, they are ingesting a lot of plastic. We can assume that in the ocean, from small to large items. Sorry.
Did you have another question?
Yes, but they might come back.
Okay, I have a question, especially for Mark. So, if you were to put something right next to all the plastic bags, like at the self-checkout, what would be the one sentence, like the single black slide with the white letters? What would you print and have in every grocery store in America, if you could? It's the one sentence to get people to think.
Well, people think that you can throw things away. They still talk about throwing things away. There is no away, and it's hard to get that across if you had that just as a sentence at the end of the checkout counter. But there is no away, and I truly think change will happen if people as your daughter's age and younger grow up understanding that when plastics are basically forever, and they're not biodegradable unless somebody knows something that we haven't found. So behavior has to change. And if I didn't come up with a very good sentence for you, but I know there are places. Sydney Harbor in Australia is one of them that the community, the big city, really made an issue of cleaning up Sydney Harbor, and it was filthy, full of plastic bags and dead cows, coming from upstream. And they've done an amazing job. I'm sure there are still a lot of microplastics in Sydney Harbor, but it's taken, 15, 18 years for that to really change. So change will come slowly, but it has to come through education.
I have a sentence.
I do too. Good.
I would say, kind of tying along with one of the quotes that we already said in this classroom, it's just one plastic bag, said 8 billion people.
Right. Oh, good one.
Yeah, that's good.
My sentence would have been, for Mark's, don't make me sail again in 15 years around North and South America.
So, but there is a question. Have you, the people who manufacture the plastic, that and all the bottles and everything, has there been a change chemically in what they're using? Is there any hope on that front? I guess I'm asking Anna. So, Anna.
Anna, did you hear that question?
Bans? You mean globally?
Well, I guess the primary producers of plastic that it ends up in making pop bottles and everything else. Has there been any change in the formula of that to give us any hope that I think biodegradable plastic seems to be an oxymoron, but is anything happening on that front? I don't know.
So there are the bioplastics, like they have figured out the bioplastics, but often a lot of those take grade. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yeah.
Sorry, it glitched a little. But so the plastic bags, our plastic bags, which really kills me, always say, "Oh, this has been recycled out of another plastic material," and it's like, but you're not understanding that if you're making plastic, you're recycling into plastic. It's still going to be in the environment forever. When it, I have images of plastic bags that have the word recycle, and it's like in the ocean, and you're just like, that's a little backwards. But bioplastics are a new thing that they're using. Unfortunately, a lot of goods are advertised as bioplastics, but they have to be, the way that they're degraded would be industrial. Like, it won't just degrade in your compost.
Great.
And so we have to be careful when we're looking at that, because I was going to talk about bioplastics in my presentation, and then I started on the deep dive, and I was like, actually, that's not even really the answer either. Reusables are really the way forward. Or like some paper cups have like a plastic lining inside of them so that the hot water stays inside of it, right? And so there's a lot of we call that greenwashing, or they use this word eco, and then put eco on everything, and you have to really do a little bit of research into the products. Like a lot of like styrofoam containers are now these, like, they say bio plant-based containers, but they have to go through a full process to be, and often that process can use so much fossil fuels that it doesn't actually reduce the carbon footprint. So we're needing to find, like algae-based, like plant-based materials, like plant leather is a great alternative for clothing. And so, yeah, we almost have the answer, but it's also the plastic manufacturers are the billionaires that run the planet, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot underlying that I think the average person or average consumer is not aware of.
Right.
Yeah.
Good questions. Really good questions.
Great questions.
Yeah.
She's very curious, so I'm sure we'll have follow up for all four of you with Joe. It means a lot to be here.
All right, very cool. Well, good to see you both, and I think we'll see you again tomorrow.
I think so.
All right, cool. All right, thanks, crew. We'll see you soon. I've got one more here from YouTube. This is from Tim. Well, there are two from Tim, but you guys kind of talked a little bit about the biodegradable claims, and a friend of mine did a research where she had groceries in a plastic bag and checked on them over the course of 3 years, and after 3 years she could still use the plastic bag after it had been sitting in the ocean, tied like to the side of a dock. It didn't break down at all. It needs that heat, it needs that industrial process. But Tim's other question, and we may not be there yet, but he's wondering, is there any large scale process or plan to try and do something, remove plastics completely on a more permanent scale?
Yeah. So the Great Ocean Cleanup, I was also going to highlight them, but I wasn't sure how the timing was going to work. But the Ocean Cleanup, so Boyan Slat is a Dutch inventor, and I urge everybody to go and give the Ocean Cleanup a follow. So they realized that it's over 1,000 rivers around the world that contribute to 80% of the garbage that we find in the ocean. And what they've done is they have started to create barriers in all of these different rivers around the world, and also have started a giant, it's like between two ships, a giant net that drags really slowly and moves really slowly with the tide in the Pacific. And for the first time ever in human history, we are finally cleaning up one of the world's largest plastic gyre, being the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And so for the last 5-6 years now, they've been collecting that trash, removing it from the environment, and recycling it fully. Like some of the Coldplay vinyl plates have been made from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch trash. They have Deloitte as one of their key sponsors, and so some of the projects that they're doing is really incredible. They just recently installed a great trash barrier in Guatemala, which they get what's called a trash tidal wave that contributes to almost 3% of the ocean trash comes from one river in Guatemala. And they've finally been able to blockade that, and so that it's no longer running into the ocean. And so for me, if I think of one organization that's actually going to really help reduce plastic in the ocean, it's the Great Ocean Cleanup. And they are now, this last year, they have introduced AI into their programs, and they've been able to double the amount of plastic that they accumulated last year, which was already double that they did in 2023. And it's really sensational to see how they can use technology for the good and that they have these drones that are tracking and mapping and able to pick up all the and have that data. They have ships similar to you guys that are sailing around, also collecting data and working on from micro level to macro on how we can stop this. So that's the Great Ocean Cleanup. I would give them a follow before you do anything else today.
Right.
Thank you,
Watch
Hannah.
the 2025 recap.
Very cool. Well, before we sign off for today, I think you guys are on a cell phone right now. So can we get some of that sweet, sweet ocean view before we sign off?
We'll take it outside.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see if I can turn around. Oops. Sorry, I accidentally turned off the camera for a second.
Okay.
Here we are. Tim, do you remember what this bay is called?
Oh,
We have a lot around us. You can see some patches here.
Looks like you got the place to yourself.
Yeah, we have the place to ourselves. There's actually one building over there, and that's going to be a museum. And they're kind of building that right now. But yeah, we've been really lucky to find this bay because there's a lot of wind around here and it's really unpredictable. So we're nice and protected right now. But look, I hope you can see but
Yeah.
some pretty incredible mountains, and we have birds over there too.
Very cool.
But yeah, definitely a very beautiful bay and nice and protected, which is really important for us. We don't want to drag anchor or have to worry about that. So it's been great.
Yeah, thanks, Tess. That's great. Well, I want to start off with always a shout out to our classrooms. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. A shout out to those who will tune into the YouTube link later as well. A big shout out to you, Hannah. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing the great work you're doing. And then, of course, as always, to our Around the Americas team, thanks for another great lesson. I believe we are back together later in March to talk sharks and rays and skates. That is on March 24th at our usual 12 p.m. Eastern. And I will pop up the link one more time if you want to check out One Island, One Ocean and follow them as they have turned their ship north and on their continuing adventures.
Well, thank you very much once again, Joe. And thank you so much, Hannah. I've learned a great deal from you, and I really appreciate seeing you again and hearing everything you have to share with us. So thank you.
And thank everybody for the great question.
Thanks.
All right. We'll see you guys again on the 24th. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Joe. Bye, everybody.